Tips for angling screens. I'm Tony. Welcome back to Streetball Strategy.
Told you, hold your tongue, don't bite the bullet. Say it loud, they thought we wouldn't. Cross the line, we took the win. So tell me if you had enough, cause we at it again. Come on!
Today we're talking about setting screens and how it can help you to be more efficient out here on the basketball court. More specifically, we're talking about should you angle your screen a certain direction? When should you do it? How should you implement it into your strategy? So let's talk about setting screens and getting better. So the majority of the video is going to be mostly for beginners, because I'm assuming if you're moderate or above, you probably don't feel as though you need to watch a video about screening tips. So since this video is for beginners, let's kind of start at the beginning. So if you don't know what a screen and a pick are the same thing. And essentially what you're doing is you're trying to use your body as an obstacle for the defense. So you'll have a teammate who's trying to get open, and his defender is guarding him so well or so closely that he can't get any space to get a good shot or to get open off the ball. So then what will happen is you will be standing here completely still and stationary. Your teammate will run towards you. He will use the front of your body as a screen, as a pick. He'll run his defender into your body. So he'll go around you, but his defender is supposed to run into you. That way, when he goes past you and the defender runs into you, now theoretically he's going to be open. And remember, you can only set a pick legally with your chest. You can't set a pick with your back. Now, a general rule to keep in mind when setting screens or using a screen to get open is generally whatever direction your screener's back is facing, that's usually the direction the player that's trying to get open is going to go. For the sake of simplicity, let's try to keep this as simple and basic as possible. Usually screens are set for the ball handler. So if the ball handler is coming towards you and you set the screen, wherever the ball handler goes once he uses your screen, usually the direction is going to be somewhere in the direction of which the screener's back is pointed. That's not always true, and there are definitely exceptions to that, but in general, that's usually how. Now, the topic of today's video is, should you angle those screens? Because usually, especially for beginners, when a screen is set, a standard flat screen means your teammate is running directly straight at your chest. He's at 12 o'clock and is coming straight at your chest. He's trying to get his defender to come straight at your chest. So you're flat to that defender. Now, if you were to angle, that means you would angle your body in a certain way so that the defender would then hit your body on a certain angle. Now, there's certain reasons you would do this, and we're going to get into them soon. But the general rule to keep in mind, especially if you're watching a screen happen, is ever the screener's back is pointed, that's where the ball handler is most likely to go, at least that general direction. So now that we've established what screens are and how they work, now let's get a little bit into the strategy of how to use them and when and where, how you may go about angling a screen. When it comes to general strategy for using screens, whether you're the screener or the person actually using the screen, there's two major things I like to keep in mind. One is intention and the other is communication. The reason I say this is because, number one, it's all about knowing what the screen is being set for, what the intention of it is. There needs to be a point, a reason, a purpose for that screen being set. A lot of time, especially out here at the park recreationally, what you'll see is players, especially newer beginner players, they will come out here and they'll set screens and picks just because they feel like that's what you're supposed to do. That's what they see the NBA players doing. So they think like automatically the first thing you should do out here on the court is come and set a screen for your teammate. The problem is they don't actually have a plan for how or why that's going to help their team. Now, there can be something said for if your team feels stagnant, if like you're trying to set up your offense and nothing's really happening and no one's really moving, then okay, like go ahead, set a pick for your teammate and then hope that that kind of jostles them into some kind of, purposeful activity. Even if the screen itself doesn't have an actual planned intent, at least you use it as a spark to get things started. But hopefully having to do that will be a rarity. Now, it probably happens way more often than it should, or way more often than we would want it to. But my point is, if you're going to set a screen, there needs to be some kind of purpose and intent for it. Second of all, the communication lies in how are you going to communicate that intention amongst your teammates. Because it's one thing when you're out here with your friends and they know you and you know them and you know each other's game and you know each other's preferences and what you like to do and what you usually try to do. When you know each other's games like that, then sort of silent communication is much more easier because you already know each other. So setting screens for each other is much easier because the intent is much better understood between friends than it is between strangers. But what about when you are out here with strangers and you don't know each other's games and you don't know each other's preferences? How should you use screens in those situations, be able to communicate the intention of that screen? Well, that's where the angles can come into play. You angle your body in a certain way. If you're the screener, when you angle your body in a certain direction, you're saying, follow the path of my back. Like, I'm screening for you to follow the path of my back. I want you to go where my back is pointed. So you can set a nice flat screen and that's fine. That's probably going to result in a basic screen that's just trying to get the ball handler open or some space to shoot. But when you angle your body in a certain direction, you're kind of silently indicating to your teammate, okay, this is the direction I want you to go once you hit my screen. So if you set a flat screen, you want them to go directly behind you. If you angle a certain way, then you're saying, okay, I want you to go that way. And again, remember, we're being basic here, so we're setting screens in this example for the ball handle. Now on the topic of intent, it's not just about setting a screen particularly for the ball handler. Maybe the purpose of the screen is to get you, the screener, open. So maybe it's a pick and roll or a pick and pop. If that's the case, you want to set the screen in a way where, for example, if you are going to set the screen to get the ball handler open and then you're going to slip down towards the basket and immediately start posting up, my advice is when you set that screen, you angle it in a way so that as soon as the screen happens, you can then slip through down to the basket in the most quickest and efficient way possible. So wherever you're setting the screen from, you want to angle your body so that you have to do the least amount of turning in order to slip down and start posting near the basket. The same idea takes place if you're going to pop out after a screen for a jump shot. You want to set that screen in a way where the intention is it's going to be easiest for you to get into shooting position once you've set that screen. So you angle it in a way that is optimal to you being able to set up for that shot as quickly and as easily as possible. So it's all about intent. Who are you trying to get open? Who is the screen being set for? Whoever the screen is being set for, that's the way you angle it to get to the result of that play as quickly and easily as possible. If you're setting a screen like at the top of the key for the ball handler, so the ball handler uses your screen, he hits your screen, the defender runs into your screen, but now the ball handler passes off to another teammate on the wing, and then the player that had the ball, that passed the ball to the wing player, he then cuts to the basket for a give and go. Now you're setting a screen in a way where so that the ball handler who gives up the ball can then cut to the basket as quickly and easily as possible. You angle that screen in the best possible way so he can make the best possible cut that he can. So have an intention for the screen and have a way to communicate that intention to your teammates. And then when they use the screen, have that screen be optimal for whatever the result of the play is supposed to be. Now let me just hit on the communication part real quick, because it's vital that you have as much clear communication on the court as possible. Whatever you need to do to communicate, here's the screen I'm setting. When I set it here in this place at this angle, this is what I want you to do. Whatever you have to do to communicate that to your teammates so it's clear, so everybody's on the same page and everybody knows the intention of the screen, you do that. Whether it's before the game even starts, or even if it's like you have to call a timeout because people are getting confused and don't know what's going on, or if you have to go up and get in your teammate's ear during a dead ball situation and say, hey, look, this is what happens when I do this. in this situation, just to make it, whatever you have to do to make sure communication is clear, you need to do that. So many times out here, I see teams, players, that they're making mistakes, they're playing badly, but only because they're not communicating with each other. Like individually, they're good players and can make good plays, but because they're not communicating their intentions with each other, they don't know what the other's doing. So as a team, they're failing. So don't be shy to communicate what's going on. If you're a beginner, don't be afraid to ask what's going on, why and how things are taking place. Make sure you ask. This is not the time to be timid. Tell people what you're trying to do, what the intentions are. Ask if you don't know. Don't make that mistake. To finish up with the topic of strategy, let's talk about not overusing the screening strategy. Because just like with any other strategy, if you overuse it or you overexpose it to the other team, the more they see it, the more they're able to then adjust to it and take it away from you. So if you start the game by always angling screens, eventually a competent defense is going to catch on to that, and they're going to be able to read your screens, and you're going to be telegraphing what those screens are being used for, thus making those screens less and less effective as the defense adjusts. So there's two ways you can go about doing this. Either you start out using a certain strategy and then modify it as you go so that it's not the same thing over and over again and the defense doesn't get used to it, or you don't implement that strategy at the beginning but then start to implement it towards the end of the game, especially if the game is close and tight, so you can throw something different at the defense hoping to expose them. Now, pick and roll in general is such a standard practice and play out here. It's other than isolation, it's the one thing that players do out here the most. So it's not like you're just going to stop using pick and roll altogether. I'm just saying the consistency, the frequency, and how and if you angle those screens, that strategy needs to be, like how you implement it throughout the game, needs to be kept in mind when you come out here, because you don't want it to get stale and you don't want the defense to start adjusting to it and taking it away before you had a chance to really use it to its highest potential. I guess as well, you could use screens or any kind of strategy, you could use it sporadically, but in terms of, you know, being on a team, being able to like know as a team subconsciously, like without actually verbally communicating it on the court and letting the other team know, it's hard to like effectively sporadically use a strategy and keep a bunch of strangers who don't know each other and don't know each other's game on the same page enough and often enough to use it sporadically. So yes, you can use a strategy sporadically so that defense doesn't ever get used to it. It's just hard to do if you're not really super familiar with each other's game. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you like this video, if you found it helpful at all, if you think it's going to help you be able to play better screen and roll basketball out here at the park, then please subscribe to the channel. Also, let me know down in the comments, how do you use pick and roll and what tips do you have for everybody else to make their pick and roll game that much better. But before you comment, make sure you hit that thanks button down below, because not only does that thanks button highlight every comment you make, making it stand out from all the other comments, but every time you hit that thanks button, it also directly supports the channel. So for anyone that does that, know I genuinely appreciate it. As always, like, share, comment, like I said, make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified whenever any video goes live on this channel. And until then, see you guys next week.
Back in the building, back with the bosses. The type of talk where you know what the cloth is. It's just another day in the office where the energy is high, why building a fortune. I break neck, so yes, I got style. I don't got neck, so yes, I got now. Fresh to death, they sweat in my steez. There's levels to the game, we making it look easy.